History beyond sleep. The place where history's darkest secrets refuse to stay buried. Tonight,
there are two popes in Rome. One wears white. He smiles from balconies, blesses the crowd, kisses the feet of children, and drapes the heavy robes of tradition over his shoulders with grace. He is seen. And the other, he wears black. He walks quietly behind the curtain, speaks rarely, and is known to few beyond the marble walls. He holds no parish, preaches to no flock, and signs no encyclical. Yet for centuries, it is said he has moved the church like a shadow moves the flame. They call him the Black Pope, not as a slur nor as an insult, but as a whisper of reverence and fear. Officially, his title is the Superior General of the Society of Jesus, a name that gleams with dignity. Unofficially, to those who listen, to older winds, he is the one who knows everything the Pope does not. The phrase Black Pope did not come from inside the Vatican. It came from those who watched it, puzzled and uncertain. Foreign diplomats, 18th century authors, whispering monks. They saw a figure dressed in simple black, yet surrounded by men who bowed. They saw him welcomed into closed rooms, and they wondered, why does he not answer to the Pope, yet always remain within arm's reach? To understand the Black Pope, we must begin not with a man, but with an idea born in war, shaped by devotion, and sharpened like a sword. The Jesuit order. The Society of Jesus was founded in 1540 by Ignatius of Loyola, a Spanish soldier who found God while recovering from a cannonball wound. He was not gentle, not meek, not peaceful in the way monks are often imagined. He was strategic, disciplined, and utterly consumed with the idea that the world needed saving, and that, to save it, one must be trained like a warrior. Jesuits are not monks. They do not retreat from the world. They charge into it. You'll find them teaching in universities, debating in embassies, exploring the Amazon, translating ancient Chinese texts, and navigating the halls of power. But behind their education and intellect lies a darker kind of vow, a fourth vow, beyond poverty, chastity, and obedience. Complete submission to the Pope, no matter the command, no matter the cost. And to lead such men, such minds, there had to be one voice. One general that man is the Black Pope. Unlike the visible Pope, who lives in ceremonial light, the Superior General lives in the quiet halls of the Curia Generalizia, a building just down the Tiber, marked by no insignia, no grandeur, no hint of its global influence. He is elected for life by men who themselves are deeply formed in Jesuit secrecy. He commands thousands of Jesuits worldwide, and through them the pulleys and wheels of schools, missions, political influence, and philosophical might. And yet his power is not in what he says, but in what he withholds. His mastery lies in silence. Over the centuries, rumors accumulated like dust in cathedral corners that Jesuits had infiltrated monarchies and democracies alike, that they kept secrets not even cardinals knew, that the Black Pope on occasion gave advice that shaped conclaves, redirected crusades, and rewrote prophecies. Of course, none of it could be proven. Jesuits are scholars, not conspirators. Or so the official voice repeats. But history is often built not from what is proven, but from what is whispered. It was not until the 20th century that the myth of the Black Pope began to swirl with darker urgency. As the world burned in two great wars, the Church stood tall, but shook within. Modernism crept in, secularism surged, and the faithful began to ask questions the hierarchy could no longer easily answer. It was then, in the quiet decades between Reform and Revolution, that the name of the Black Pope returned, now paired with a prophecy, not a prophecy of fire or dragons, but of knowledge. A final message, it was said, delivered privately by one superior general to a circle of 3 men. Some claim it was never written down. Others insist it was locked in the Vatican archives, and a few believe it was hidden in plain sight, encoded in papal documents disguised as poetry or sealed in ritual. Whatever the case, the final words of a Jesuit general spoken in his last retreat before death have never been fully recovered. Only a line remains, passed from monk to monk, scribe to scholar: "The church shall split not in thunder, but in snow, and only one shall remain to speak the name of God." What does it mean? Interpretations range wildly. Some say it refers to a future schism, one between old doctrine and modern reform. Others see a metaphor for collapse, the silencing of tradition, the rise of something synthetic. And a few believe it is a warning that one day only the Jesuits, the silent men in black, will remain when all else falls away. The Vatican has never commented. The Jesuits refuse to speak of it, but the myth remains untouched by denial and strengthened by absence. Tonight, as the lights dim in St. Peter's and pilgrims drift away from the square, there is one chamber where no candles flicker. One door that opens only inward. Behind it, somewhere in Rome's shifting corridors, sits a man in black, unknown to most, and yet central to all. He is not Pope, but perhaps, in another sense, he is something deeper. A keeper of keys not found on any ring, a guardian of the prophecy the world may never be ready to hear. And as the moon rises over the dome, its pale light softens the marble, and the shadows deepen. Before the black robe became a symbol of mystery, before the whispers of hidden power echoed through the marble halls, there was only a man, wounded, restless, and searching. His name was Ignatius of Loyola, a soldier by birth, a noble by blood, and a pilgrim by destiny. In 1521, on a battlefield in northern Spain, a cannonball shattered his leg, and with it the course of his life. Laid low in the quiet agony of recovery, Ignatius asked not for poetry or song, but for books, stories of valor, of saints, of sacrifice. There, somewhere between the lines of martyrdom and miracle, he felt something stir, a calling, not to war, but to discipline, not to glory, but to obedience. By 1534, he and a band of 6 companions had taken their first vows in a small chapel in Montmartre, Paris. They were scholars, yes, men of languages and letters, but beneath the surface ran a steel resolve. They called themselves the Company of Jesus, a military name. Deliberate, the Pope approved them 6 years later, and so began the story of a brotherhood unlike any the Church had ever seen. Not monks, not friars, not parish priests. Jesuits. To understand the Society of Jesus is to understand contradiction made holy. They were men who lived in poverty, yet advised kings. They were missionaries who preached humility, yet influenced policy in foreign courts. They walked softly, but carried the intellectual firepower of centuries. Their guiding light? A vow of obedience so absolute, it rivaled that of any army. In their training, Obedience was not simply expected. It was drilled, refined, perfected. The Jesuit novice was taught to say, "What seems white to me, I will believe to be black, if the hierarchical church so defines it." This was not surrender. It was strategy. In a world fracturing under Protestant fire, the Catholic Church needed men who could act swiftly, think clearly, and never question the mission. Men like soldiers. Men like ghosts. By the time Europe entered the tumultuous 17th century, Jesuits had already spread like a quiet tide. In China, they stood at the court of the emperor, teaching astronomy and translating Confucian texts. In Paraguay, they built vast reductions, settlements run with stunning autonomy, a blend of European order and indigenous culture. In North America, they walked barefoot through forests, bringing the gospel to tribes never before seen by European eyes. They built universities, advised monarchs, debated atheists, and baptized emperors. But more than anything, they observed, always watching, always remembering, always writing. It wasn't long before fear began to stir in those who watched them. To some nobles and clerics, the Jesuits seemed too clever, too connected, too omnipresent. They didn't just follow orders, they appeared to anticipate them. Some whispered that they operated beyond papal command, that their true leader, the superior general, wielded more control than the Pope himself. And so the nickname was born. The Black Pope, not in skin but in robe and reach. Who was this man? He was elected for life. He commanded more loyalty than any bishop. He sat atop an internal network that stretched from Tokyo to Toronto. He did not speak in sermons. He issued directives. He conducted visitations. He received reports coded in phrases, cloaked in piety, and filed in secret Jesuit archives. But what made him feared was not how loud his voice was. It was how quietly it moved the world. One 18th century ambassador once wrote, "The general of the Jesuits is the most powerful man in Rome, save for the Pope, and he may yet surpass him, for he commands men whose minds are sharper than daggers." Yet no outward crown marked his authority. No throne, no coronation, only the black cassock, only the seal, only the silence. His instructions came in phrases layered with theological grace and tactical ambiguity. He could ask a Jesuit to transfer halfway across the world, not with orders, but with a single line, "The vineyard awaits your pruning." And they would go, but such devotion, such reach, invites both awe and suspicion. The Jesuits became the favorite target of conspiracy theorists, monarchs, and even rival church factions. They were accused of political manipulation, of whispering into the ears of popes, and of shaping world events from behind cathedral walls. Some of it was exaggerated. Much of it was invented, but not all. Even the Vatican at times grew uneasy. With the power of its own shadow, in 1773, under pressure from European monarchs, Pope Clement XIV suppressed the entire Jesuit order. He signed the brief with shaking hands, locked himself in his chamber, and died the following year under mysterious circumstances, poisoned, some claimed, by Jesuits loyal to their general. Though no proof ever emerged, the myth endured. The society was resurrected 40 years later. But the memory of that suppression and the whispered revenge that followed etched the Black Pope legend even deeper into stone. And yet, what makes the Black Pope so enigmatic is not merely his power, but his purpose. He is not driven by wealth nor by popularity. His mission is older, deeper, to preserve the church and prepare it. Prepare it for what? That is where our path, D-A-R-K-E-N-S dot, because among Jesuit writings there are veiled references to cleansing fires, to apostasy within, to the church suffering not from outside attack, but from internal unraveling. Some believe the superior generals have long held a secret doctrine, passed privately, never printed, warning of a future crisis. Not a collapse of faith, but a replacement of it. An inversion cloaked in progress. And if such a prophecy exists, then the Black Pope is not simply a general. He is a watchman, a guardian of the candle before the wind. As this chapter closes, we find ourselves not with answers, but with atmosphere. The Jesuits, those soldiers in God's shadow, remain disciplined, intelligent, and painfully silent. Their superior general continues his work, unseen by most. And somewhere, perhaps in a quiet study in Rome, beneath frescoed ceilings, and behind locked drawers, lies a single envelope, untouched for decades, sealed with wax, marked with a sign no one understands, and waiting for the day the prophecy must be opened, or the day it comes true. In the quiet corridors where history's great powers converge, the Jesuits walk like shadows, unseen, yet profoundly felt. Their influence is neither shouted nor displayed. It is woven delicately into the fabric of kings' courts, emperors' councils, and the heartbeats of nations. By the 17th century, the Black Pope had become more than a spiritual leader. He was a master strategist, guiding the invisible threads of diplomacy and faith. While monarchs sought glory on battlefields, Jesuits were the quiet architects of influence, shaping treaties and hearts alike. From the imperial courts of China to the Nasset universities of Europe, Jesuit envoys carried messages not only of faith, but of power and subtle control. Their missionaries spoke languages fluent in theology and politics, tailoring their words to captivate emperors and princes. With maps inked in secret knowledge, they laid foundations for centuries of unseen dominion. They advised kings, counseled popes, and taught princes. They were confessor and confidant, whispering truths that only the highest echelons dared to hear. It was said that Jesuit confessors held more sway than armies, for they knew the fears, the hopes, the sins of those who ruled. But such influence invited suspicion and fear. Rumors of manipulation spread like wildfire. Whispers spoke of Jesuits as puppeteers pulling strings from the shadows of the Black Pope's will, bending crowns to his unseen hand. Some courts barred Jesuits outright. Others welcomed them with wary reverence. Yet the Black Pope's true power was not in overt command, but in his ability to inspire loyalty and obedience, not just from Jesuits, but from those who saw wisdom in discretion. He wielded influence like a shadow wields the night, ever present, shifting, impossible to grasp. In this delicate dance of power and secrecy, the Black Pope became a figure both revered and feared, a man whose reach stretched across continents, but whose face remained a mystery to the world. And as the world turned beneath the weight of empires and revolutions, the Jesuits remained steady, soldiers not on battlefields, but in the unseen wars of influence and faith. Beneath the radiant splendor of St. Peter's Basilica, hidden beneath the glittering mosaics and marble floors, lies a labyrinth few have seen and fewer still understand. It is a city within a city, corridors folded into corridors, chambers sealed by ancient locks, and stairways that descend into silence. Here the heartbeat of the Vatican's deepest mysteries pulses quietly, far from the public eye. The Black Pope's office, they say, resides somewhere within these shadowed halls, a room unmarked on any map, guarded not by soldiers, but by secrecy itself. No tourist ticket grants entry here. No guidebook dares mention it. It is a sanctuary of silence, a vault of power. Scholars who have glimpsed its existence speak of libraries stacked with leather-bound tomes, parchments sealed with wax, and relics enshrined in darkness. Documents dating back centuries, hidden, away from even the most diligent Vatican archivists. Whispers tell of coded letters, theological debates locked in cipher, and prophecies never spoken aloud. To enter is to cross a threshold where history and mystery merge, where the story of the Church is written in invisible ink and guarded by vows of iron. It is a place where the Black Pope's power breathes quietly, sustained by knowledge no one else may hold. Legends say that these doors open only once a year, on a night when moonlight is swallowed by clouds and the city's pulse slows to a murmur. Inside, men in black robes gather, their voices low, their purpose profound. Here, decisions are made not for the faithful below, but for the unseen future. And yet, despite its veiled importance, the nature of what lies beyond remains a mystery even to many within the Vatican. Is it a chamber of council? A vault of secrets? A sanctuary of prophecy? Or something more, something no human was meant to know? As night falls over Rome, the streets grow quiet, and the great doors remain shut tight. Behind them the Black Pope waits, guardian of knowledge, keeper of silence, and the deepest secrets of the Vatican remain locked away, unseen by the world and untouched by time. Among the countless scrolls, parchments, and bound volumes tucked away in the Vatican's deepest archives, there exists a legend of one envelope, small, unassuming, yet heavy with mystery. It is said to be sealed with wax marked by a symbol no scholar has fully deciphered, placed aside with a reverence bordering on fear. This is the prophecy box, a secret message entrusted to the Black Pope, never to be opened without dire cause. Stories whisper that this envelope was delivered in the final days of a superior general's life, a message meant for his successor, or perhaps for the Church in its darkest hour. Its contents are a riddle wrapped in shadow, said to contain warnings of upheaval, revelations about the future, and truths too profound for the light of day. For centuries the envelope has remained unopened, guarded by successive Black Popes, each weighed down by the gravity of their oath. Why has it not been revealed? What fear grips those who hold the key? Is it a prophecy of doom or a secret of salvation? Some say the words inside could shatter the faith of millions, while others believe it might be the final hope against an approaching darkness. Priests and scholars speak in hushed tones, cautious not to draw the attention of those who might see the envelope as a threat. Its legend grew most vividly in the 20th century, when whispers from within the Vatican hinted at a prophecy that would change the Church forever, yet remain forever locked away. There are tales of clandestine meetings, veiled letters passed under doors, and silent gestures exchanged in shadowed chapels. And still the envelope sits in its place, a silent sentinel. of a secret burden that no man dares to carry alone. It is a symbol of faith, fear, and the unknown, a threshold between past and future, between light and shadow dot as we drift deeper into the mystery of the Black Pope's final prophecy. The unopened envelope stands as a reminder. Some truths remain hidden, not out of deceit, but out of the hope that one day the world will be ready to listen. In the twilight of the 20th century, a voice emerged from within the very heart of the Vatican's shadows, a voice both troubled and urgent. Father Malachi Martin, once a trusted Jesuit scholar and insider, became a defector of secrets, a whisperer of warnings. His story is one of faith turned doubt, of knowledge weighed against conscience, and of a prophecy that chilled even the most faithful. Malachi Martin was not a man of idle talk. He was steeped in the Church's ancient rites, trained in the languages of theology and diplomacy, and familiar with the corridors where the Black Pope's power quietly thrived. Yet what he revealed was unsettling: accounts of clandestine councils, spiritual battles waged beyond the sight of the faithful, and a darkness growing within the very walls meant to guard the light. He spoke of the third secret of Fatima, a prophecy long shrouded in mystery, and hinted that the Vatican's official disclosures only scratched the surface. Behind closed doors, Martin claimed, there existed knowledge of spiritual corruption, of evil forces entangled with power, and of a coming trial that would shake the Church to its core. Critics called him a sensationalist, a man chasing shadows. But his words resonated with those who sensed the quiet storm brewing beneath centuries of tradition. For Martin, the Black Pope was not merely a figure of authority, but a guardian of a truth too terrifying to face openly. His defection was painful, a fracture in faith, a warning cast into the night. Though he never named names, his revelations fueled speculation that the final Jesuit prophecy was not just about external threats, but an internal reckoning, a warning whispered in prayer and hidden in silence. As we listen to Martin's tale, we are reminded that even within sanctuaries of faith, shadows linger, shadows that the Black Pope must face alone. And perhaps the greatest secret lies not in the prophecy itself, but in the courage to speak it. In the spring of 1917, beneath the vast Portuguese sky, a small village named Fatima became the stage for a series of visions that would echo through the corridors of the Vatican for decades to come. 3 children, humble shepherds, spoke of a lady bathed in light, a virgin who wept, warned, and prophesied. Their words were simple, yet haunting, weaving together hope and dread in a quiet symphony. The apparitions spoke of peace, of prayer, and of the dangers that lurked in a world tearing itself apart. But beneath these gentle admonitions lay a secret, darker than most dared to whisper, a secret known only to the Church's inner circles. Among these hidden truths was the so-called third secret of Fatima, a prophecy withheld from the public eye for nearly 80 years. Locked away in the Vatican archives, its contents were a source of speculation and fear, a shadow cast over the promise of salvation. The Jesuits, guardians of knowledge and interpreters of prophecy, were deeply entwined in this mystery. Malachi, Martin, and others suggested that the Black Pope and his council held the key to understanding this secret, a message that, if revealed too soon, could unravel faith itself. The silence surrounding Fatima's deepest warning echoes through the decades, a reminder that some truths are veiled for reasons beyond human understanding. Was the prophecy a call to repentance, a warning of global upheaval, or something more profound? The answer lies somewhere between light and shadow, whispered in the hush of candlelit chapels, and the turning of ancient pages dot as night deepens over Rome and the world. The Virgin's silent tears continue to fall, unseen by most, but not forgotten by those who watch and wait dot in the quiet hours just before dawn, when even Rome's ancient stones seem to sleep. There are stories of a man who awoke breathless. In his chamber, a Jesuit general, his brow damp with fear, his hands trembling as if he'd seen the end of the world. His attendants spoke only in whispers. He refused all food. He would not speak. For 3 days he remained cloistered, staring into the empty hearth as if watching something burn that no one else could see. He died within the month. The journals of that unnamed superior general were sealed, per tradition, but a single line was copied into the private record of his successor. The church shall weep in fire, and be reborn from flame. The sentence was not theological. It was not doctrinal. It was a vision, vague, poetic, and terrifying. And it did not stand alone. Across scattered private writings from Jesuit historians and generals, there are similar fragments, patterns of apocalyptic dreams, cryptic phrases, and metaphors of collapse. They speak of internal division, of sacred halls hollowed from within, of a voice crying out from deep below the Vatican, not in rage, but in warning. Some believe this line, weeping in fire, refers to the modern decline of religious authority, the waning trust in institutions once seen as unshakable. Others more quietly say it was a literal vision, a burning dome, a fractured altar, and a world without faith. What makes this story more haunting is not that it exists, but that it has never been denied. The Jesuits, when asked, respond with silence, not correction, not clarification, just silence. The Chamber of Ash, as some have come to call it, is not an official room. It is a name born of rumor, a metaphor for the place where prophecy and mortality meet, where men who carry the burden of unseen truths finally break under the weight of them dot. And if the vision is real, if a black pope once saw the end not of the world, but of the church as we know it, then perhaps the prophecy isn't just a foretelling. Perhaps it is a preparation, one meant not for fear, but for endurance, because fire may destroy. But it also purifies. There comes a moment in every long-held tradition when silence says more than ceremony ever could. In 2016, after nearly a decade as the Superior General of the Society of Jesus, Father Adolfo Nicholas made a decision that startled those within the Vatican's deeper circles. He stepped down. No scandal, no sickness, no summons from the Pope, just a handwritten letter, and a farewell that spoke of humility, mystery, and unfinished purpose. A Jesuit general stepping down was not unheard of, but it was rare, especially for one still capable, still lucid, still cloaked in secrets. 4 centuries, the office of the Black Pope was a lifetime appointment, a spiritual command post that one entered with full knowledge of the vow you would leave only by death or divine intervention. So why did Nicholas walk away? Those who knew him described a man increasingly withdrawn in his final years as general. Not depressed, not broken, but troubled. He began speaking, in private, of a future the Church is not yet ready for, of decisions he was not meant to make. and of a moment coming when absence would speak louder than action. It was during his final days in office that a candle, said to burn continuously outside the Jesuit archives, was found extinguished for the first time in decades. The priest who lit it again reportedly found a slip of paper tucked beneath the brass base. He who leaves the chair empty does not abandon it. He preserves it. What did it mean? Was it metaphor? A resignation out of protest? Or a decision born from foresight, perhaps one connected to the very prophecy the Black Pope is said to guard? After Nicholas's departure, a period of uncommon quiet fell over the Curia Generalizia, the Jesuit headquarters nestled in the Trastevere district of Rome. For 3 weeks, the chair of the Superior General stood empty. No documents were signed, no statements issued, no directives sent, only the sound of sandals on marble and the soft echo of doors gently closing. Some insiders called it a retreat, others a moment of intentional stillness, as if Rome itself were holding its breath when Arturo Sosa, a Venezuelan Jesuit with deep philosophical training, was elected to succeed Nicholas. The continuity resumed. But those who had watched closely noted a shift, a quiet urgency in Sosa's tone, a reflective weight behind his words, as if he had inherited not only an office, but a warning. Adolfo Nicolas lived 4 more years after his resignation, mostly in quiet residence in the Philippines, far from Rome, far from intrigue. He rarely spoke publicly, and never again addressed his departure. When he died in 2020, his funeral was modest. A single candle burned at the head of his casket, and behind him on the altar the Jesuit seal, the radiant sunburst, seemed almost too bright against the dark stone dot. It is said that on the day he passed, a package was quietly delivered to the new Superior General's chamber. Inside was a bound leather volume. No title, no signature. Just a note in Nicholas's delicate hand. Read only when the hour comes. You will know it. And with that, another layer of the Black Pope's mystery was sealed again. Is the prophecy simply a legend passed through whispers? Or is it being prepared for, step by careful step, by those entrusted with its truth? We may never know, but perhaps some resign not in defeat, but in reverence, not to escape the weight of their knowledge, but to protect it, to preserve the silence. Before the storm. There is a place beneath Vatican Hill that no map properly shows. No signs lead to its entrance. No stained glass tells its story. It is not the famed Vatican Library, with its curated halls and golden spines. This is something deeper, older, hidden in darkness, guarded not by locks, but by tradition too sacred to break. They call it, in whispered tones, the Scriptorium Obscura. The library beneath, no light dot if the Black Pope guards a prophecy. If he is the keeper of truth too sharp for daylight, then this place, this breathless vault of shadow, is where such truths sleep. Here, in silence deeper than tombs, rest the parchments that never made it into encyclicals. Here lie the heresies too complex to condemn, and the revelations too volatile to proclaim. Bound in cracked leather and sealed with the rings of long-dead superiors, the volumes lie in rows untouched by sun or eye. Some are said to be the personal journals of Jesuit missionaries who claimed visions in the jungles of the Amazon, where they saw not demons, but something older than angels. Others are written in symbols, glyphs that no linguist has translated, save for a line scrawled beneath one text in Latin. This is not language, but memory. Among these buried thoughts are fragments of what may be the final prophecy, pieces of it, perhaps, scattered through different voices, collected not as doctrine but as puzzle. The Scriptorium Obscura is not just a library. It is a vault of doubt, of danger, of potential. Each document is a doorway to something too wild or too sacred for the world outside to understand. There are rumors, always rumors, of a particular scroll, bound not in paper, but in what appears to be pressed lambskin. On its first line, when the shepherd kneels and the wolf sings psalms, the silence must break. No one knows what it means, or if it was even written by a Jesuit. But it is kept, preserved, catalogued under a file marked simply Noctis Vox, Voice of the Night. It is said the Black Pope visits the scriptorium once in his lifetime, and only once, not with entourage or candlelight, alone, to read what only he is allowed to read, to understand what only he is expected to bear. One former Vatican archivist, who spoke anonymously before vanishing into quiet retirement, said the Superior General, who came that night, did not emerge for 7 hours, and when he did, he wept. Whether he wept from sorrow or awe, no one could say, because the deeper purpose of this place is not to preserve secrets, but to protect those who are not yet ready to know them. As the world outside buzzes with information, theories, and noise, the library beneath no light remains still, unbothered, untouched, waiting for what? Perhaps a signal, perhaps the end of something, or the beginning of something far greater. And if, as some believe, the final prophecy is not one document but a constellation of them, buried here, scattered like embers among ash, then the one who reads them all must carry a burden heavier than the papal crown. The Black Pope may never speak of what he sees here, but he remembers, and that remembering may be what keeps the world whole. The conclave, a gathering of whispers, prayers, and silent choices, is where the fate of the Church is often decided. But in 1773, beneath the heavy velvet curtains and flickering candlelight, a decision was made that would ripple through centuries. It was a moment when the Society of Jesus itself teetered on the edge of oblivion. The suppression of the Jesuits was not a sudden storm, but a slow-burning fire, fanned by kings, courts, and fearful cardinals. A complex web of politics, jealousy, and suspicion had woven itself tightly around the Black Pope's order. Whispers of too much power, too much influence, and too many secrets fueled demands for their disbandment. Behind closed doors, the Black Pope at the time faced the impossible: to defend an order beloved by the faithful, yet hated by monarchs. The last Superior General before the suppression reportedly pleaded in vain for understanding, his voice a quiet echo in a hall filled with silence. In that conclave, the chair of the Jesuits was left empty, a symbol of absence, of sacrifice, and of prophecy unfulfilled. Though officially dissolved, the Jesuit spirit never truly died. The members scattered like seeds on the wind, hiding in monasteries, universities, and distant missions, waiting for a day when they could return. This shadow exile only deepened the mystery of the Black Pope. Was he defeated, or was he retreating, biding his time in silence and patience? Stories tell of secret councils held in exile, of coded letters passed through hidden networks, and of a prophecy whispered among the faithful that the society would rise again. When Pope Pius VII restored the Jesuits in 1814, it was not merely a return, it was a resurrection, and in that resurrection, the Black Pope's final prophecy gained new meaning, a warning that the Church's greatest trials might lie not in open conflict, but in the silence between the battles. As the conclave's candles flickered out and the world outside turned ever more restless, the Black Pope remained, an echo in the halls of history, a shadow waiting for the dawn. The world turned swiftly, and yet some storms approach with a silence deeper than any thunder. The Black Pope's final prophecy, whispered through centuries, is said to speak of such a storm, a quiet upheaval beneath the surface of faith and power, not a cataclysm of fire or sword, but a folding inward, a fracturing of the spirit. In recent decades, the Church has faced challenges unlike any before, a shifting tide of belief, the rise of secularism, the questioning of tradition, and the hunger for new answers in a world desperate for meaning. Through it all, the Jesuits, those soldiers in God's shadow, have continued their work, quietly adapting, teaching, and preserving. Their superior general walks a path lined with invisible choices, balancing the old with the new, the sacred with the secular. The prophecy's meaning remains elusive. Is the snow that shall split the Church a metaphor for coldness creeping into hearts, or a literal sign of times yet to come when faith is tested by forces both seen and unseen? The Black Pope's role, ancient and mysterious, may be too. Shepherd the Church through this stillness before the storm, a guardian of resilience and hope. As night falls softly over Rome, the candlelight flickers in the hidden chambers where the Black Pope keeps his watch. No words are spoken aloud, only the steady heartbeat of faith, strong yet fragile. And so we end this journey in quiet contemplation. For some secrets are not meant to be shouted from rooftops, but whispered in shadows, held gently like a prayer carried on the wind. May your dreams tonight be filled with calm mystery and gentle wonder, as the story of the Black Popes. Prophecy lingers softly in the silence. In the annals of the Society of Jesus, most names are forgotten to time, their works folded into the greater mission. But there are a few, very few, who leave behind whispers louder than words. Among them is a man known not for what he taught, but for what he dared to question, Father Lorenzo Ricci, the 18th century superior, general of the Jesuits at the very moment when the world turned against them. He was no firebrand, no agitator. By all accounts, Ricci was a contemplative, man-measured, gentle, deeply committed to the ideals of his order. And yet, when the storm came, it was he who stood at the center, carrying the weight of centuries. And a secret only he could have known, that, as pressure mounted from monarchs and cardinals, Ricci did not fight, he did not flee. He remained within the walls of the Jesuit church in Rome, fasting, writing, and, it is said, preparing for something that no one else could see. Some believe he had been shown a vision, that, during a private retreat, Ricci received what he called a veiled message in silence, a kind of inner transmission not meant for speech, only for memory, a voice not his own, that warned of an eclipse without sky and a mirror that would crack from within. In his final days before the suppression of the Jesuits in 1773, Ricci is said to have penned a private letter, not to the Pope, not to the Curia, but to his unknown successor. It contained no instructions, only this: what we built in light will survive in shadow. The shepherd must one day walk alone and carry what I now bury beneath silence. When the Jesuits were suppressed, Ricci was imprisoned without trial in the Castel Sant'Angelo. There, within those damp stone walls, he withered slowly for 2 years. He died alone. But the mystery did not end with him. When the Jesuits were restored in 1814, decades later, the archives of the society were returned piece by piece. Among them was a sealed envelope, aged and brittle, marked with the initials LR. It was never opened. Instead, it was stored without fanfare in the private vault of the Superior General, known only to those who hold the Black Seal. Many believe this envelope contains Ricci's final written form of the prophecy, his private vision, his warning, his legacy. But no one can say for certain, because every black pope since has chosen not to open it, perhaps out of fear, perhaps out of faith, perhaps because some prophecies are not meant to be read, but remembered past, like breath, like intuition, like prayer in a darkened church. Father Ricci's story lingers like smoke in the rafters of history. A Jesuit who knew too much, or perhaps a Jesuit who was entrusted with just enough to carry us through the quiet unraveling dot in a locked cabinet deep within the Jesuit Curia, said to be behind 3 doors and a corridor marked only with Latin scripture. There lies an object far stranger than words, a map that defies orientation, ignores known geography, and bears no compass rose. Jesuit cartographers were among the finest in the early modern world, sailing with missionaries, advising emperors, and redrawing borders with meticulous grace. But this map, this one was not meant for navigation. It was not drawn from ships or stars, but from something older, deeper, and possibly not entirely of this world. Its parchment is aged, yes, but intact. The ink surprisingly bold. Coasts curve into unfamiliar lands. Continents seem distorted, but not inaccurately, merely reimagined. And in place of north at the top corner of the map, a symbol appears, an eye within a triangle, surrounded by rays and emblem known just to Jesuits, but to ancient mystics and secret societies. Alike, Jesuit scholars refer to it in hushed tones as Mappa Silenti, the map of silence. What was its purpose? Theories abound. Some believe it to be a metaphysical rendering of spiritual geography, a visual language of prophecy, showing not where nations lie, but where destinies converge. Others insist it is a map not of earth, but of something parallel, a spiritual reflection, a symbolic warning, a geometry of history yet to unfold. One faded note tucked in the archive alongside it, dated 1679, bears only this line in Latin: "When the Church forgets where north is, let this guide her." That cryptic phrase has obsessed Jesuit historians for centuries. What does it mean for the Church to forget north? Does it warn of moral disorientation, a spiritual drift? Or is it a literal forecast of a future where even the stars no longer point the way? Several superior generals are said to have consulted the map in private moments of global crisis, before wars, during schisms, in the quiet hours before papal transitions. It is always returned to its case, unaltered, unspoken of. No public mention, No confirmation. In more recent decades, rumors have linked the Mappa Silenti to the mysterious envelope kept near the prophecy files, suggesting the map and the message may be parts of a single whole, that the Black Pope's final prophecy is not only something to be read, but something to be navigated. A crisis not just of doctrine, but of direction. For what does a church do when its compass breaks? Where does the shepherd lead when even the heavens go silent? The map answers nothing, but it does what all good maps do. It invites the journey. It offers a path that may yet be walked or avoided, and perhaps that is its true function. Not as guide, but as mirror, a chart of our fears, our choices, and the shadowed paths we must one day face. The Mappa Silenti remains locked away. Its roads remain unread, and the Black Pope, who alone holds the key to understanding its meaning, sits once more with candlelight flickering at his back, gazing not at the stars, but at a map that leads not outward, but inward. Not all secrets are buried in vaults. Some are hidden in plain sound, nestled in cadence and rhythm, whispered in the pauses between words. This is the realm of the Jesuit cipher, not a code of letters or numbers, but of intonation, a language not spoken but sensed. In the shadowed education halls of the Jesuit order, long before missions were launched or doctrines debated, initiates were taught to listen differently, to hear the shift in a breath, to read the tremble in a pause, to understand silence as vocabulary. Among the rarest of these teachings is something only a handful of Jesuits ever encounter, an auditory cipher known as verba dormiens, or the sleeping word. It is said to be a vocal pattern, passed only from general to successor, used in ancient liturgy and deep prayer, a code that is not meant to be written. According to oral tradition, verba dormiens was not invented but received, gifted, in the early 1600s by a missionary monk in Goa, who recorded visions of a black sun and a silver voice. When he returned to Rome, changed and quiet, he shared only a chant, 7 notes long. Not melody, not harmony, something else. Those who heard it claimed it made the air around them shift. Birds stilled mid-flight. Candles flickered without. Weaned. From that moment on, the chant was studied by the Jesuits not as music, but as message. It is said that this auditory cipher could be used to identify truth from falsehood, not in others, but within oneself. The Black Pope, as part of his most private rite of succession, is said to recite the verba dormiens in solitude, not for magic, not for prophecy, but to listen deeply for an echo only he can hear. Those who emerged from this rite, marked by sudden white in their hair or inexplicable tremors in their hands, never spoke of what they felt. They only nodded quietly when asked if they still believed. Some say the cipher contains a hidden question, and that each general hears it differently. A test, a mirror, a key to the final prophecy, not in word or map, but in vibration. In the 20th century, with the rise of digital sound analysis, a curious anomaly was detected by a Jesuit-trained linguist. While recording the ancient chant in a sealed studio, the waveform revealed a second pattern, inaudible to the ear but present in the data. It repeated only once at the 7th note, a burst of harmonic code, almost mathematical, yet organic, unreplicable, unexplained. When this discovery was shared with the superior general, The linguist was invited to Rome. He never returned to academic work again. Instead, he joined the order, took a vow of silence, and disappeared into the Jesuit. Shadows dot to this day. Some believe the Verba Dormiens is not a cipher at all, but a summons, a call not to action, but to readiness, because when the hour comes when the prophecy must be fulfilled, it will not arrive in trumpet blast or falling star, but in a note, a frequency, a vibration that only the Black Pope will recognize, and when he does, he will know the silence is over. Among the many symbols tied to the Black Pope, none is more enigmatic than the seal of shadows. Unlike the papal ring or the cross, this seal is never seen by the public eye. It is a private emblem, carried only by the superior general of the Society of Jesus, a sign of authority, silence, and the burden of unseen knowledge. Crafted in secret, the seal is said to be forged from blackened silver, etched with intertwining symbols, a serpent coiled around a cross, a star veiled in twilight, and a Latin phrase barely legible beneath it all, in umbra veritas, in shadow, truth. The origins of the seal are shrouded in myth. Some claim it was created in the early 1600s, during a time of turmoil within the Church and the wider world, a token of unity and strength among Jesuit leaders. Others believe it predates even the society itself, passed down from an earlier order sworn to guard hidden wisdom. When the Black Pope assumes his office, the seal is pressed into wax on every secret document, every prophecy, every instruction meant for the eyes of few. It is a mark of finality, a silent command that the message is both sacred and dangerous. Legends speak of a ritual where the new superior general receives the seal in a private chapel deep beneath the Jesuit church, surrounded by silent monks and flickering candles. There, with the seal's weight in hand, he swears an oath not just to the church, but to the shadows where truth resides. This oath binds him to protect knowledge that could unravel empires or restore faith, depending on the hour. It is a sacred trust, heavy with the awareness that some secrets are not meant to be revealed, at least not yet. Throughout history, rumors have swirled of documents bearing the seal of shadows that disappeared mysteriously, thwarting political plots or preventing catastrophic revelations. Some suggest that the seal itself holds a power beyond symbolism, that it can ward off betrayal, silence dissent, or even summon loyalty in times of peril. But the true power of the seal lies in its bearer, the Black Pope, a man who carries the weight of prophecy, the burden of secrecy, and the quiet hope that comes with watching over a world unready for the full truth. As the candlelight flickers and the seal rests in the hand of the Black Pope, a silent prayer is whispered. May the shadow protect, may the truth endure, and may the silence hold until the hour arrives. It was not the thunder of war that shook Rome, not the clash of empires or the wrath of heaven. It was a morning wrapped in strange stillness, the kind of hush that falls before a revelation. On October 13th, 1981, the sun rose quietly over the domes of the Vatican, casting golden light across marble steps and ancient fountains. But within the Jesuit curia there was movement, swift, silent, urgent. That morning guards were reassigned. Doors that had remained closed for decades were unlocked. A private chamber beneath the Jesu was prepared. The Black Pope had called for what insiders would later refer to only as the inner retreat. No announcement was made. No visitor logs were marked. Even the Vatican's own press corps fell silent for 48 hours. Inside the chamber, 5 men gathered: the superior general, 2 former archivists, 1 theological philosopher, and a silent monk whose name does not appear in any registry. What they discussed remains unknown, but records recovered later, unsigned, half-burned, suggest a disturbing convergence. One fragment read, "The signs have begun, the twin voices, the fracture in devotion, the silence rising. We must now choose between safeguarding faith or revealing the map." Another simply stated, "Do not open the envelope. Not yet." What happened that day was not visible to the world, yet it left a strange afterglow. That afternoon, at precisely 3:13 p.m., the main bell of St. Peter's Basilica rang 3 times, though no service was scheduled and no one admitted to sounding it. In Trastevere, a Jesuit novice collapsed during silent prayer, mumbling in Latin a phrase he'd never learned: "The shepherd dreams in flame." In the following days, the Black Pope canceled all public appearances. A planned audience with the Pope was postponed indefinitely. When he finally emerged, his hair was noticeably whiter, his hands slower, his gaze deeper, as though he had looked at something few have dared, and returned changed. Some believe that on that quiet day in Rome, the Black Pope glimpsed the final thread of the prophecy, not in a vision, not in words, but in timing. Perhaps the signs, long scattered like ash over centuries, had begun to converge: the collapse of old alliances, the rise of hollow faith, the noise of the world drowning out the sacred dot, and above it all the sound of silence growing louder. For the first time in over a century, rumors began to circulate that the final envelope, the one sealed by the first Black Pope to speak of the prophecy, had been placed on the Superior General's desk, unopened, unmoved, waiting, because perhaps the greatest test is not whether we can read the prophecy, but whether we can bear to know it. And so the day Rome stood still passed without riot or revelation, just the gentle echo of footsteps in empty corridors, and the steady breath of a church waiting beneath candlelight for what would come next. And in the heart of that stillness, the Black Pope watched and listened and chose silence for now. Carry weight beyond sound. They are vessels of memory, of identity, of secrets whispered through time. Within the vaults of the Jesuit order there exists a list, known only as nomina susurrata, the whispered names. These are not names written in honor nor carved in stone. They are names spoken in shadow, those who bore knowledge too great for the common tongue. Men and women whose lives intertwined with the prophecy, whose fates were sealed by the vow of silence. The list dates back centuries, compiled carefully by generations of Black Popes. It includes explorers lost in jungles where ancient spirits roamed, scholars who deciphered forbidden texts, and monks who vanished without trace after midnight meetings. Each name carries a story, a sacrifice, a warning, a lesson. Some whispered of betrayal, others of courage. All of them bound by the same thread, the burden of knowing. Among the names are several who dared to defy the order's strict codes, risking exile to share fragments of truth with the outside world. Their words were often dismissed, their motives questioned, yet the echoes of their warnings lingered. It is said that the Black Pope keeps this list close, not as a ledger, but as a prayer, For each name is a reminder that prophecy is not written in isolation, but lived through human hearts. When the Society of Jesus faces trials, the whispered names are invoked quietly, a chorus of unseen guardians watching over the delicate balance between revelation and concealment. The list itself is hidden beneath layers of cryptic code, folded within the pages of an ancient manuscript known only as Vox Tenebris, the voice of darkness. Few have ever glimpsed its worn parchment. Fewer still have dared to read beyond the first lines. And those who have speak of a profound melancholy, a meditation on fate, silence, and the cost of knowledge. As we contemplate these whispered names tonight, we sense the unseen hands that shape history, the silent voices that carry truth in their hearts, and the quiet courage of those who bear the Black Pope's final prophecy, not as a burden alone, but as a fragile hope. Sound is more than what the ear perceives. It is a tapestry woven with whispers, echoes, and silences, the spaces between notes that hold secrets deeper than words. Within the Vatican's ancient walls, scholars have long pondered the veil of the inaudible, a concept that suggests the Church guards not only texts and artifacts, but frequencies beyond human hearing. This veil is said to cloak messages embedded in sacred chants, in the rhythm of Gregorian melodies, and in the cadence of whispered prayers. A hidden layer of communication, audible only to those who listen beyond the physical. The origins of this idea trace back to mystics and theologians who believed that divine truths could be transmitted through sound waves, a spiritual resonance that transcended language. Jesuit scholars, with their deep scientific curiosity and theological rigor, have studied acoustic phenomena in cathedrals, noting how architecture shapes sound into patterns that can evoke transcendence, and some speculate in code secrets. There are legends of sacred spaces within the Vatican designed specifically to amplify or silence certain frequencies, chambers where a whispered prayer could be heard clearly only by the initiated, or where a chant's true meaning would be lost to any but the purest ears. The veil of the inaudible represents the boundary between the seen and unseen, the spoken and unspoken. It is a reminder that some knowledge is meant to be felt, not read, to be sensed, not spoken. Modern technology has begun to explore these mysteries. Audio scientists, collaborating quietly with Vatican archivists, have detected unusual harmonics in recorded liturgies, patterns that resemble coded sequences, complex enough to suggest intention, yet subtle enough to evade casual notice. The Black Pope, it is whispered, is attuned to this veil. His role includes the responsibility to interpret what lies beyond the audible, to guard the frequencies that carry prophecy. When the veil lifts, as some fear it will, the truths hidden in silence will speak. Until then, it remains a quiet guardian of sacred mystery, an inaudible veil draped over the deepest secrets of faith. As you drift to sleep, imagine the world of sound around you, not just the noises, but the spaces where silence and sound meet, and the quiet songs that only the heart can hear. In the heart of the Jesuit residence, nestled deep within the winding corridors of the Jesuit church, there is a small chapel known to only a few. It is a place of solitude, where shadows dance softly against ancient stone, and the air is thick with whispered prayers and quiet contemplation. Here, a single candle burns perpetually, a symbol of enduring faith and watchful hope. It is said that the Black Pope himself tends this flame, not as a ritual, but as a sacred responsibility. The candle represents many things: the light of hidden knowledge, the fragile hope in darkness, and the promise that no matter how deep the shadow falls, some light remains. Over centuries, the chapel has witnessed silent tears, fervent vows, and the solemn passing of generations who bore the weight of secrets too great for the world outside. It is in this chapel that the Black Pope confronts the final truth of his prophecy, not as a distant prediction, but as a living, breathing reality. The candle flickers in time with his heartbeat, a gentle reminder that even in silence, life persists. The last candle is both an ending and a beginning, a moment to honor what has passed and to prepare for what is yet to come. It is a space where faith and fear meet, where silence speaks louder than words. As night deepens and the world outside fades into quiet slumber, the light in this chapel continues to glow, steady, unwavering, a beacon in the soft, dark. May this gentle flame guide your dreams tonight, and may the Black Pope's final prophecy rest lightly upon your heart, as a quiet secret held in trust until the dawn. Behind the grandeur of the Vatican, and beneath the whispered prayers of congregations, there exists a brotherhood few know, the Silent Watchers. These are not clergy known to the public, nor officials recorded in annals. They are guardians of the Black Pope's secret, keepers of the prophecy's flame in the shadows. Bound by vows of silence deeper than mere words. They serve as sentinels in the corridors where history's darkest truths lie hidden. Their eyes observe without judgment. Their presence is felt, not seen. The Silent Watchers are believed to be composed of former Jesuits, scholars, and monks who have devoted their lives to the sacred duty of preserving the balance between revelation and secrecy. They move through archives, guard ancient texts, and listen for the faintest stirrings of change. Some say their origins date back to the earliest days of the Society of Jesus, formed to protect the order's deepest mysteries when threats loomed from both outside and within. Others whisper that the Watchers have no beginning, that they are as eternal as the stones beneath Rome itself. Their role is not to act, but to witness, to stand at the threshold of history and bear silent testimony to the unfolding of the prophecy, to ensure that when the moment of revelation arrives, it comes not as chaos, but as measured truth. In times of crisis, it is said the Silent Watchers send messages, not through letters or speeches, but through signs, a candle left burning where none should be, a book opened to a single page, a shadow cast in a place of light. They are the quiet heartbeat of the Church's deepest mysteries. Invisible threads woven through time. As you close your eyes tonight, imagine the Silent Watchers standing watch around you, guardians of the night, keepers of secrets, protectors of the fragile line between knowing and unknowing. In their silence, find peace. In their watchfulness, find rest. And in the quiet mystery they embody, drift gently into dreams. There is a time in every prophecy where symbols become signals and silence becomes instruction. The Jesuits call it hoa custodita, the guarded hour. It is not marked by clocks, nor found on calendars. It arrives without trumpet or warning, known only to those who have listened for a lifetime. And when it comes, it is not with fire, but with stillness. For centuries, the Black Pope has waited for this hour. the hour when the final parchment may be opened, when the sealed map may be unrolled, when the hidden chant may be spoken, not in silence, but aloud. In quiet corners of the Vatican, subtle changes unfold. Doors long closed are quietly unlatched. Old texts are reviewed with new eyes. Chambers echo with hushed voices, speaking languages no longer taught, voices that wonder not if the hour will come, but if it has already arrived. For what is prophecy, if not time wrapped in metaphor? Some say the signs are already here. A church divided not by belief, but by fatigue. A world saturated with noise, starving for truth. A generation with too much information and too little meaning. In private, the Black Pope prepares. Not in panic, but in prayer, he reviews the scrolls passed through shadows, rereads the dreams of those who came before him, and holds in his hand the envelope that has never been opened, the final page written not in ink, but in foresight. One breath, one candle. One moment. It is said that when the hour truly strikes, the world will not end, it will realign. The great silence will break, not with violence, but with clarity. A veil will lift, a truth will unfold. Not all will understand it, but all will feel it. And the Black Pope will know what to do. He will not act in haste. He will not speak in fear. He will simply fulfill the vow made in secret long ago, to guard, to guide, and when the time is right, to reveal. As the night deepens around you, feel the ticking of a quieter clock, the heartbeat of history waiting for its moment. And when the hour strikes, may you be listening. Beneath the bustling courtyards of the Vatican, beyond the labyrinth of halls and sanctuaries, lies a chamber few have ever entered. The hidden chamber of echoes. It is a room not marked on any official plan, a space woven from shadows and silence. Here, voices of the past seem to linger, reverberating softly against stone walls that have witnessed centuries of prayer, fear, and revelation. Legend says the chamber was carved during the reign of a Black Pope, whose vision surpassed time itself. It was designed as a sanctuary where the whispers of history could be preserved, not in ink or parchment, but in echoes. These echoes are said to be more than sound. They carry impressions of moments long gone, the flicker of a candle, the murmur of a secret meeting, the soft footsteps of those who bore the prophecy before. Visitors who have glimpsed the chamber describe an overwhelming sensation of presence, as if the air itself is alive with memory. Some claim to hear fragments of prayers, confessions, and even prophetic warnings spoken centuries earlier, replaying endlessly in an eternal loop. Within this chamber, time seems fluid, past and present merging into a single, continuous now. The Black Pope is said to visit this place often, sitting quietly in the dim light, listening not just with ears, but with heart and soul. It is here that he contemplates the weight of the prophecy, feeling the threads of history pull and twist, connecting past decisions with future consequences. The chamber holds no writings, no artifacts. Its power lies in its intangibility, a living archive of spirit and intention. As you listen now, imagine yourself stepping softly into the hidden chamber of echoes. Feel the gentle hum of history around you, the stories not told, the secrets not written. And in that quiet space, find comfort in the knowledge that some truths live not in words, but in the silence between them. As twilight fades into the deep blue of night, The Black Pope begins his final vigil, a sacred time reserved for reflection, prayer, and the acceptance of fate. In the solitude of his chamber, illuminated only by the flickering flame of a single candle, he sits wrapped in quiet contemplation. This vigil is unlike any other, carrying the weight of centuries and the solemn promise of prophecies soon to be fulfilled. The air is thick with the scent of ancient parchment and burning wax, a sensory reminder of the countless black popes who came before, each bearing their own silent burden. Through the hours, memories rise like gentle tides, visions of suppressed Jesuits, whispered names, cryptic maps, and hidden ciphers, threads woven into the fabric of a destiny both mysterious and inevitable. The Black Pope's thoughts drift to the unbroken chain of silence that has protected the Church through storms of doubt, fear, and upheaval. He knows that soon the delicate balance may shift, ushering in an era of revelation, change, or perhaps quiet endurance. He does not fear the future. Instead, he embraces the unknown with steady heart and unwavering faith. Outside, the city sleeps beneath a blanket of stars, unaware of the vigil unfolding in the heart of its most secret chamber. The candle's flame dances gently, casting long shadows that merge with the darkness, a symbol of hope amid uncertainty. As this night stretches toward dawn, the Black Pope's vigil becomes a prayer for guidance, strength, and the courage to face what lies ahead. And as you close your eyes tonight, may you carry a piece of that quiet strength with you, a gentle light to guide your dreams and calm your soul. There are no trumpets, no fire in the sky, no trembling earth or chorus of angels. When the moment comes, it arrives as a whisper, softer than breath, older than time. The Black Pope sits alone. Before him rests a single envelope, yellowed with age, sealed with the mark of his earliest predecessor. Its edges are worn by generations of cautious hands that passed it onward, but never dared to break its seal. Now it is time that he touches the wax with reverence, not fear. It crumbles without resistance, as though it, too, was waiting for this hour. Inside, one sheet. No code, no cipher, no sacred map. Just a few lines of ink, faded but clear. The Church shall stand at the crossroads of shadow and light, not to be destroyed, but to be asked, what is left when silence has said all it can say? He who reads this must not act with haste. The truth must come not as a weapon, but as a whisper. The world will not listen. So you must become the silence that speaks. The Black Pope reads the words again, not with his eyes now, but with his soul. He does not weep. He does not fear, for he understands now the prophecy was never a warning of doom, but a test of devotion. Not a prediction of collapse, but an invitation to carry wisdom quietly through noise, to protect what is sacred without spectacle, to wait with faith until the world is ready to hear not the thunder, but the hush. He rises from his chair and walks slowly to the chapel where the last candle burns. He does not speak, but the air changes, as though history itself is exhaling. The flame steadies. The silence deepens. And the prophecy now fulfilled vanishes not in fire, but into the heart of the one who dared to open it. He does not share it with the world. Not yet. He places the letter back into the envelope, reseals it with fresh wax, and marks it not as ending, but as beginning, for some truths are not meant to be known, only carried dot as you drift now into sleep. Know that the story lives on, not in books or bells, but in every quiet choice made with wisdom, in every truth whispered with love, and in every silent watcher who dares to hold the light.